Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the first of our three master classes that will be held in the next couple of days. I am Ginevra, International Admissions Officer, and I am delighted to be moderating this first masterclass titled Strategic Sustainability Communication, Challenges and Trends for Business Companies. This masterclass will be held by our professors, Professor Stefania Romenti, Professor Federica Ricceri, and Professor Eleanor Colleoni. As for me, I will be following the masterclass in the background, and I'll be back to you as soon as the class is over to read the professors your eventual questions. And afterwards, I will do a short presentation about the university and our admission requirements and the admission processes. So without any further ado, I leave the floor to our professors that I thank very much to be here today, that are joining us today. And I thank you all students to be with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ginevra, for this introduction, and welcome to everybody. I am Stefania Romenti, and I am the coordinator of this Master Program in Strategic Communication. If you can just share the presentation that we have prepared. Thank you so much. And in next slide, we can see that I am not alone, obviously. And we are three professors of this master program. And today we will talk about strategic sustainability communication. So first of all, I will try to explain you the reason why sustainability is so important for strategic communicators at the moment, and the reason why we teach sustainability in our program. Then I will leave the floor to my colleague, Federica Ricceri. She is a professor of business strategy, and today she will talk about sustainability reporting, so challenging about examples of good practices in reporting about results in the sustainability field. And finally, we will leave the floor to Professor Colleoni. She is Professor of Reputation Management and CSR Communication. And today she will share with you and with us some basic principles, some worst practices, and some best practices about how to communicate CSR effectively or not, obviously. Okay. I want just to start my presentation, if we can go to the next slide. I want just to start this presentation by sharing with you the definition of strategic communication. That's the definition that we teach to our students the first day of our master program. What is strategic communication? What do we mean by strategic communication? Strategic communication includes all the processes of communication of an organization. So internal communication, external communication, corporate communication, communication about products and services, all types, all processes of communication, all processes of communication that are strategic. So they are substantial, they are crucial for the success and the survival of an organization. When we talk about organization, we don't mean just corporations or business companies, but also governments, for instance. A lot of governments have department in strategic communications, or organization associations, not-for-profit associations, for instance, social movement, global organizations such as United Nations or other kinds of similar organizations, and also celebrities sometimes. So very important persons, VIP, sometimes they have strategic communication officers that they take care of all the processes of communication around them. So in this master program, we teach our students how to use communication in a way that is substantial for the success of an entity in a purposeful use way. So in order to engage people in goals which are absolutely strategic for the organization itself. And we teach our students to formulate communication strategies, to obviously plan communication strategies, communication budget, to execute them, and obviously to assess and measure and monitor them at the end of the process itself. If we can go to the next slide, please, we can see that our master program sorry, prepares for different kinds of career opportunities. Obviously, if you attend this master program and if you are a graduate in strategic communication, you can become a strategic communication expert or a strategic communication officer. But what is really interesting of this master program is that it offers career opportunities which are more vertical, very specialized in some fields. For instance, our students attend courses in reputation management and brand management and identity management, so they can become experts in brand management, identity, and reputation management itself. Or they attend a lot of courses in digital communication management, so they become experts in digital tools in the digital area. They are absolutely able to govern and to manage different kinds of digital tools. And then, as you can see in this list, they can become crisis communication manager if they decide to attend compulsory courses in crisis communication, obviously, and they select also or they add additional courses in their plan of study. Or internal communication managers, public affairs manager, and experts. We have activated a lot of courses in fashion communication, luxury communication, so they can also become expert in communication just in this kind of industry and so on. So as you can see, the list of career opportunities is very, very long. And at the end, we have placed the career opportunity of the CSR communication manager. Sustainability in the last years, it's obvious that it has become really, really strategic. And now the companies are asking us experts of sustainability issues. So persons who are very expert in the sustainability field, they know very well the standards, they know very well in which way sustainability strategies could be embedded into company strategies, and in which way the activities in the field of sustainability that the companies are doing can be communicated effectively. Obviously, when we talk about sustainability, we talk about environmental sustainability, but also social sustainability. So if we go to the next slide, we can see that we have organized our plan of study into completely different year. The first year is common to all students of the master program. And during the first year, as you can see, our students attend very general courses, such as a course in strategy and management, a course in fundamentals of strategic communication, a course in digital communication management and artificial intelligence, and so on. And then also in the second semester of the first year, they try to learn about data analysis for communication, crisis and risk communication principles, and they start to learn about principles of CSR communication. So during the first year, all the students attend all the courses, which are absolutely compulsory, and they start to understand which are the basic principles of CSR and CSR communication. During the second year, as you can see in the next slide, our students can select two different paths. So they can just attend a path in corporate and marketing communication, because they can study and go deeper and deeper in learning about marketing, brand and marketing communication, social evaluation, brand narratives, but also and they can learn also some specific principles in communicating, for instance, towards investor relations and the financial community. So they attend a very interesting and technical course into financial communication and investor relations, internal communication and change management, and finally, as you can see, corporate and public affairs. Or they can select the second profile, the second path, which is very, very specialized into the field of sustainability. So a second path into sustainability communication. And as you can see, all the courses are very, very technical, are very, very specialized, because obviously we need to teach to our students the technical contents, such as about how to make an integrated reporting, but also how to manage human resources in a sustainable way, or which are the key issues about digital sustainability, human values and global environmental issues, and so on. So as you can see, this kind of path is very, very specialized and absolutely rooted in the field of sustainability. We have developed this kind of profile because companies ask us to do that, because they ask more and more graduates who know very well the basic principles of strategic communication, but they know in the meantime also what is sustainability and which are the basic concepts in this field. So if we go to the next slide, please. We can just conclude by sharing what is strategic sustainability communication for us. It is very, very complicated to communicate effectively sustainability. You can see at the right of this chart, for instance, the 17 goals of the United Nations. And for each goal, there are some specificities, there are some technical contents that should be well understood by communicators in order to be shared and then communicated. So to communicate in a strategic way, the sustainability means to communicate about sustainability. So, for instance, try to discuss about sustainability issues, opinions, interpretations, and so on, but also communicate of sustainability. So when the companies, the companies sometimes should provide information related to sustainability, should improve the awareness for sustainability considerations by among publics. And finally, what is really important is it is also to communicate for sustainability. So just to generate social learning and try also to develop shared and collaborative solutions for sustainability issues in order to establish processes of societal transformation. So that is a very, very crucial issue for companies today, for every kind of organization, also for governmental organizations or not-for-profit organizations and so on. So we will try, obviously, to develop these skills and these competencies into our graduates. Okay, so now if we go to the next slide, I would like to leave the floor to my colleague, Professor Riccieri, about what is sustainability reporting. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon to everyone, also from my side. We will talk, as Professor Romenti said, about sustainability reporting, and we'll move to the next slide straight away, please. And to see one examples with which I started a recent class on sustainability. And I was asking students this question: if you need to buy a car, would you be willing to spend more money to buy one that is environmentally friendly, say electric cars, than traditional one? And nearly all of them said that they would be willing to spend more, let's say up to 10,000 euros for an electric car, following the belief that electric cars are defending our environment. So these answers we got was not surprising, really. As we said before, our world is rapidly shifting towards an economy where all stakeholders, that is customers, investors, governments, banks, etc., and the community itself, are well aware of the increasing importance of protecting our planet and our people. But customers are not the only ones. And if you move to the next slide, these are, you will see the result. If you do another click, please, these results are, it's a survey that has been made by an important consulting company. PricewaterhouseCoopers is a big consulting company, which surveys investors. So those who provide money that the company need to carry on their operations. And this survey showed not only that sustainability is now one of the main criteria that investors use to decide in which company to invest, but also that if these people, that is investors, think that companies are not doing well in terms of sustainability, they will vote with their wallet. That means divesting from the company, taking the money out from the company. And this is clearly very risky for companies, because the risk is that they will run out of cash if they are not sustainable, because their primary stakeholders are not willing to provide any more money to them. So basically, these very simple evidence support the trend that we are experiencing right now, that is the sharp increase in the number of companies that are undertaking a journey towards sustainability, and also the request that we got as university to prepare professionals which are specialized in this field. If we move to the next slide, we can better understand what does it mean to take a sustainability journey from the company side. So it means that companies are no longer interested in only in making profit, but are also looking at the sustainability of the business, which is the impact of their activity on the planet and on their environment. And what does it mean practically? Well, it means that these companies need to integrate in their strategy sustainability, integrating sustainability not only actually in their strategy, but also in their operation and in the way they communicate to the stakeholder. Clearly, no sustainability journey is the same. So each company has its own priorities within the social and environmental dimension, also depending on the industry in which the company belongs, and the size and the business model adopted. For instance, Volkswagen journey would be different from the one of Prada, let's say, or Moncler. As you may know, Volkswagen now is taking on the sustainability path in a very serious way, because it is willing not only to move the production to electric vehicles, but also to become from an automotive producer to become a full provider of mobility services. And clearly, this approach will be very much different from the one of Prada and Moncler. But even if we look at the fashion industry, we can see that there are huge differences in how Prada interprets the efforts in sustainability and what Moncler does. Going to very simple differences, as you can see from the slide, the priorities of Prada are mainly the environmental ones, while Moncler also focuses on the social sustainability as core part of its strategy. So if we move to the next slide, we can see here, so how, given that the path is different for each company, where is that stakeholders get the information about the progress made by the company in their sustainability journey? Well, we have one important document, which sometimes is called sustainability report, some other is called CSR report or integrated reports, that contains all the information about the progress made on the economic, environmental, and social dimension. So this is the crucial tool for stakeholders when they want to understand more about how sustainable is a company, that they can go and read and try to better understand the sustainability journey undertaken by the company themselves and the progress made. So if we move to the next slide, this is then, given that each company has its own sustainability journey, as we just said, and that actually there is no mandatory detailed prescription of the content and the form of these tools. What happens is that if you read 100 sustainability documents, no one will be the same. No one will have the same structure. No one will address the same topics. And so this clearly is providing challenges for the reader of such reports. So how clearly, these reports have been also accused in the past to be greenwashing tools in which companies portray themselves as genuinely committed in order to protect their reputation, while they may be not so sustainable in a sense in their action. So what we will see now is how what are the features, the main good practice that a report should have in order to be a genuine report and a quality report, which provide the readers of this report with the information that they need to have a better understanding of the progress made by these companies. So we will address here very basic and simple things. So we will understand how company decides on what to report, the materiality principle, and then how the information on this topic should be disclosed. If we move to the next slide, we have an example of the first decision that the company has to make. So what to disclose? So what guidelines say and best practice says in regard to this topic is that company should be selecting what to report, carrying on a materiality assessment, which is the backbone of reporting. This materiality assessment allows to select those important topics on which company should be reporting to external stakeholder. The process that ends up in this matrix, which is a matrix that should be contained in the sustainability report, involves reaching out to internal and external stakeholders to get their input and understanding what are the main topics they are interested in knowing about sustainability for that company, and also on which of the environmental and social aspect the company may have higher impact. If you do one more click, please, you can see that in the very right-hand side, high in the matrix, you can find those topics that ranked high, both in terms of interest from stakeholders and in terms of importance, in terms of impact of the company. So these here are the topics on which this company, which is Unilever in our case, has decided to make more disclosure and cannot avoid disclosing on this topic. As you can see, in this case, all the topics are colored in green, so they all belong to the environmental area. So the key topics here are the one related to the environment. So I cannot avoid talking about water consumption, for instance, okay? So this is how company actually should decide on what to report. Then if we move to the next slide, we have some example. Once the company have decided on which topic to report, they also need to provide what information should be given on these topics. Okay, one principle that a good report should follow is that the information given should not be just good news, let's say. So should not be delivering only the accomplishment that the organization was able to make, but also should focus on the challenges. So on the things that didn't go as well as the company was planning to do. So if we do two more clicks, you can see that in the table, this is an example from Marks and Spencer's sustainability report. And you can see in the first line, where is it total waste, you can see that the news are not so good at the end, because if we compare the total waste of this year with the one of the previous year, we can easily see that the amount of waste produced by the companies has increased over time, which clearly is not a good news. This is not a good news for the company itself, but is actually a good news for the report, because it's a report that appears to portray both sides of the coins of the organization, the good news and the bad news. And also you have good news themselves. You see the percentage of recycled material is 100%, which is clearly an accomplishment that the company has reached. So important thing is that we say balance. So not only good news, but good news and bad news too. If we move to the next slide, we can see an example of, okay, one more click, and then we move to the next slide. Thank you. You do 2 clicks here. One for, this is an example of the other important principle that companies should follow when reporting information on the material topic, which is comparability. So comparability implies reporting results not only in measurable term, that is quantifying, not just saying, okay, we improved our waste management programs and that's it, but providing objective, measurable indicators that allows the reader to assess how much the company improved over time, for instance, or against the target. So the first thing is providing measurable results, and then reporting the results, the achievements, against the objective that the company has established before. Okay, and this is the example of Moncler. And as you can see from the slide, Moncler is a very good example here, because in its reporting for each of the objectives that were in the Moncler strategy, you can find results that are compared against the objectives. So you can always assess what were the objectives of the company and what were the results achieved by this company. As you can see, there is also a legend up there that allows the reader for a very intuitive way and quick way of reading the results. So as we said, we talk about balance, good news and bad news, and comparability, that is comparing results against targets. It's another very good practice that is mostly belong to more experienced company in sustainability reporting. So finally, we move to the next slide, and we have our third topic. We partially addressed this topic before, and comparability relates not only to providing a comparison between what were the results achieved and the targets that the company gave, but also providing a year-to-year comparisons that say, compare the results of this year with the result achieved in the past. So this is important for the reader of this kind of reports, because allows the reader to understand what is the trend. Okay, the trend in sustainability for that company. So if we see a company that in the recent year has been reducing the amount of waste or reducing the energy consumption, we can understand that that company is actually moving in the path of energy saving, and therefore is becoming more and more sustainable. So history is usually very, very much important to understand the approach and the effectiveness of the action that have been undertaken by this company. So this was just to give you some basic insights into how technical also may become the area of sustainability reporting, but how at the end things are always also very simple and in the principles themselves. So I thank you for the attention, and I leave the word to Eleanor for her part.
Thank you so much, Federica, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm Professor Eleanor Colleoni, and I teach in this program Corporate Reputation, Social Evaluation, and Principles of CSR Communication. So if you want to move to the next slide, please. Okay, thank you so much. So as you saw from the first part of the presentation by Professor Riccieri, you saw that actually companies more and more, they engage in CSR, well, in sustainability actions, and also more in general in CSR activities, right? Where CSR stands for corporate social responsibility activities. And But even though they actually engage a lot more and more in CSR activity, companies are still very, very reluctant in communicating their CSR efforts. And of course, because somehow this is due by the fact that, as Professor Ricceri was just saying, sustainability is a sort of like this transformation is a sort of a journey, right? It's not something that you do overnight. And so companies are often worried that they will be accused of greenwashing, because maybe they changed some of their productions, for instance, but they're not completely clean, or because they didn't really like fill the whole supply chain, and for many and different reasons. So this is something that actually that you will face as communication experts, right, in the future, because even if companies engage a lot in CSR, then they don't want really to communicate CSR. And that's why we need actually communication experts, right, in this field that would successfully deliver and explain what the company is doing. But let's move to the next slide. However, even though actually companies, they don't want to engage, they are reluctant, they actually need to do that more and more. And why? Because people and stakeholders in general, like direct and indirect stakeholders of the company, increasingly actually take a stance, right? Take a stance on climate change, for instance, like on sustainability, but more in general on many other things like inclusion or diversity. And when they take a stance, they are actually also expecting companies to do the same. So they want actually companies to communicate, to tell the world their engagement, right? On how they try to solve the issues, how they try to be good citizens. That's what this is all about, right? Being good citizens. And you can see here that actually companies are responding. They are actually, they have to more and more learn how to communicate what they are and their engagement in these societal issues. For instance, here you see an example of the Marriott hotel chain, right? Engaging in this inclusive idea and their CSR action. So let's move to the next slide. So if companies need to engage, then how to communicate this engagement at best is what we actually try to teach here, right? So how can a company communicate its CSR effort without being perceived as a greenwasher? So there are some principles that, well, today we are just going through like some very generic and general key, I don't know, golden nuggets, I would say, right? Key findings that we use in strategic communication, but that can also be applied to CSR communication. So if we move to the first, to the next slide, to the first principle. So the first principle that actually a good CSR communication should have is being authentic, right? So companies, when engaging in CSR communication, they need to be authentic. They need to be perceived as authentic. But what does this mean, like being authentic? So next slide. Okay, so being authentic, it means to engage in CSR activities that are actually close to what they do, to what they are, to the way that people perceive them. So here now we have two slides, and in one you will see an example of a good and effective CSR strategy and a communication of these strategies, and another a bad example for Coca-Cola. So in this case, you see that actually they communicate their engagement in recycling, in using in their packaging, basically. So in using 100% plant-based packaging, which is kind of very important, right? And this is perceived as authentic. Why? Because that's what Coca-Cola is about, right? So they are selling like drinks, and so this is one of the key issues for Coca-Cola. And by engaging in this, they are perceived as accountable, because this is something that it really belongs to their industry, right? If we move to the next slide, Instead, when a few years ago, Coca-Cola engaged in this, they did this advertisement. I don't know if you remember this, but a few years ago they did this ads with a dad and his daughter, and he's tried to teach his daughter to drive. And this was related to all the, there was this big fight, women fight in Saudi Arabia because they wanted to have the right to drive, and so they actually, I don't see the slides anymore. And so they were actually fighting, right, for their rights to drive. And so Coca-Cola sent out this advertisement, kind of supporting, right, because in the advertisement, this dad is basically giving a Coke to his daughter while she's driving. And but instead of being perceived as a good CSR activities, these advertisements were perceived as not authentic, and actually backlash the company. And why so? Exactly because this was something that Coca-Cola never really engaged in. This was perceived as not authentic because it's not about the issues of Coca-Cola, and so people actually perceived that this was not authentic. This was not one of the key topics and issues of Coca-Cola. So being authentic, it means really engaging to the real issues, right, that you are creating when you're producing things. Next slide, please. The second thing that it has to, we need to consider when doing an effective communication strategy is the distinctiveness. So doing CSR, even when you are communicating and doing CSR, you can still build and be distinctive, right? You can still reinforce your brand. So for instance, now we see an example. Next slide. The Dove CSR campaign was actually a very, very good campaign. They did all this campaign about the real beauty, and by doing this campaign, they actually, they were of course perceived as very authentic, because Dove has always been positioned like more on the like making the real and natural beauty emerge of people, rather than like being forever young. And so this actually reinforced this campaign. This CSR campaign was reinforcing the brand and actually made like the company stands out from the crowd. So it really made them distinctive. So they because with this idea of beauty, real beauty was in line with their brand, but at the same time was unique. And actually something that they did that I also found very, very interesting and fascinating, you can see here the example on their Twitter account. So they created this hashtag I'm beautiful because, and basically allowing all their customers to express themselves, right? And to express their specific and unique forms of beauty. And by doing so, they really became like distinctive, right? By doing and communicating CSR. Next slide. While instead, again, another failure, Pepsi, in this case, they used Kendall Jenner and they did this advertising where she was like protesting. She was part of a social, she was supposedly part of a social movement, and then she addressed like the policeman with the Pepsi, and and it was very, very negative negative advertisement that again backlashed the company, because instead of like creating Pepsi, like making Pepsi stand out for something, it was just perceived as fake and unauthentic. Go to the next slide. Next. Okay, and the third principle that is crucial when doing CSR and communicating CSR is walk the talk, right? So, and this is key for you as communication professional at one point in your life, is to make sure that what you actually say, that you are actually doing what you are saying, right? And of course, because here there is that of being perceived as a greenwasher that Professor Riccieri was saying, but also you as professional, you need to make sure that your communication actually is supported by the facts. So walking the talks is exactly like aligning what you are saying and what you are doing. And by doing so, you can really create a strong and powerful CSR communication. So, for instance, if you go to the next slide, the example, probably the best example is, of course, Patagonia, right? Because they engaged in so much communication, in a lot of communication about like being even activists, right? Social activists for climate change. A lot, they communicated their engagement in all forums, but actually then they also did stuff, right? And they actually face, so to speak, the contradictions of their industry, and they decided to actually open secondhand stores, right, to recycle and to actually really engage in that and make like real that communication. And go to the next slide. Instead, a company that unfortunately didn't really walk the talk was L'Oréal Paris a couple of years ago. Social media, you know that a social media never forget, right? And this is something that companies sometimes forget about. Social media, that yes, they don't forget. And a few years ago, well, I think a couple of years ago, L'Oréal, there was the Black Lives Matters movement, and we were in the middle of this movement for against racism and for standing up for inclusion, right, and diversity, and they actually sent out this tweet in solidarity of the movement and say that they were like against injustice and for and they would have done like anything for fighting injustice. And with this like slogan campaign, speaking out is worth it. But then what happened was that this tweet was replied by the one of their former employees, the transgender model, Morrow Bedford, and she actually said that, wait a minute, she was actually fired by L'Oréal 3 years earlier because she posted on Twitter a tweet saying something against racism and white supremacy, and saying that this, that the world should like do something against injustice and racism. And actually, in response to that, back then L'Oréal fired her. And so she said, "Wait a second, you actually fired me 3 years ago." Exactly, because I was speaking out about like all the racism that I was feeling and living in my own life, and now you're saying that I should speak out. So you are very so she actually exposed the company. And so in this case, you see that how crucial it is to walk the talk, right? And to make sure that you do what you say and the other way around. So that your talking is supported by your actions. So just to finish, go to the final slide. So the key point is that chase the vision, right? So try to move in the direction that you want to be, communicate what you really are and what you're trying to do, and the money will follow. So that's the key learning. And thank you so much. So I would leave now the floor to my colleague, Professor Stefania Romenti.
Yes. So thank you. I want just to thank my colleagues and you for the attention. I think that this masterclass, very short masterclass, but it is just an example about the way by which we teach. So we have a lot of examples, practical information, and obviously during our lessons, so we make a lot of exercises. We reflect upon case studies, real case studies. So our objective was to give you a very short example on how to teach, which are our teaching methods. So thank you for your attention. And then now I think that I should leave the floor to our colleague Ginevra for the final part of this master class. Okay.
Thank you very much, professors, for your beautiful and very interesting presentation. Well, masterclass. And well, I was looking in the chat, but there are no questions, just a comment saying very beautiful presentation. And I totally agree with that. And yeah, as Professor Romenti said, I'm going to give the students a brief presentation about the university. So professors, thanks again for staying with us. And well, let's move. Okay, so this is the beginning of the presentation. So I think we can move to the next slide. All right. Yeah, just a couple of words about the university. We were established in 1968, so a little over 50 years ago. And the university was the center of excellence for foreign languages. Nowadays, we have 3 faculties. So the Faculty of Communication, which is the biggest and most famous one, the Faculty of Interpreting and Translation, and the Faculty of Arts and Tourism. We will see later on all the courses that can be found in these 3 faculties. I think that it is also worth mentioning that the university is private, which means that students do pay tuition fees, but everything is reinvested for the services that we provide to the students, because we are a not-for-profit university. Next slide, please. All right. As you can see here, there are 3 boxes, and I think that the most important one is the international dimension, because first of all, Università Ulm is an Erasmus university, and also we have a lot of partnerships worldwide, so not only in Europe, with both universities and also companies, which means that students can do both their Erasmus but also their internship abroad. As for the services that we offer for the students, we have several guidance services, and also the peer tutoring service, which is like my favorite one, and where senior students help freshmen to orient themselves in their very first days at the university. And we also offer plenty of services for disabled students. And as for career and placement, I think it's important to say that we have a very strong internship and placement office that always helps the students to find an internship or a job after graduation. Next slide, please. All right. I don't think I mentioned it before, but we are located in Milan, in Italy. And the university is very close to the city center. As you can see in the slide, we are just 10 minutes away from Duomo, which is the main square of the city. And also Milan is very well connected, so it's super easy to move around the city and to get to the university, because we have a dedicated subway station just for the university. And as for the campus, we will see a picture later on. And we have this American-style campus, I would say, where all the buildings are located in the same area. So it's very easy to move around the campus. And if students have, for example, classes in different buildings, they don't have to take the metro or the bus to move around. And everything is within maximum like 10 minutes walking distance, even less. And also we have 3 on-campus cafeterias, 1 public park that you can see in this slide on the left, which is very beautiful, mostly in the spring and summertime. And also we have a fitness center that was inaugurated last year, so it's basically new. Next slide, please. Okay, this is, thank you. This is the main building, IULM 1, where all the main offices are located. There is our office, so International Recruitment and Study Abroad office. There is the Registrar's office, the tax office, everything. So I think this building is the most important for students in general. And this is the picture, just to give you an idea of how the campus is like. Next slide, please. Now, let's move into our courses. As you can see on screen, there are 2 boxes. So the English and Italian taught programs. These that you see here are our bachelor's degrees, so 3 years courses. As for English taught programs, we offer this course in corporate communication and public relations, which is the perfect mix between communication, marketing, and a bit of business. And of course, it's totally English taught, so you do not need to know Italian in order to join the course. This is different, of course, for our Italian taught programs that are interpreting and communication, languages, culture, and digital communication, corporate communication and public relations that is offered in the 2 languages, English and Italian as well, communication, media, and advertising, tourism, management and culture, arts and cultural events, and fashion and creative industries. As you can see, all the courses can be put into the different faculties. And all of these courses have a natural upgrade, I would say, that if we can move to the next slide, I can show you. Okay, so we have also we offer 2-year master's degrees. On screen, you can see English and Italian taught programs. As for English, in this case, we have 2 different courses. Strategic communication, which is actually the one where all the professors that held the masterclass are from, and hospitality and tourism management. As for strategic communication, I think that it's the best course, the best upgrade after corporate communication. So both courses are in English. And hospitality and tourism management is the upgrade of tourism management and culture that is in Italian for the 3-year bachelor's. As for the Italian taught programs, we have specialized translation and conference interpreting, television, cinema, new media, marketing, consumption and communication, artificial intelligence for business and society, and art valorization and market. Next slide, please. All right, let's see our admission requirements for our bachelor's degrees. First of all, we need in Italy at least 12 years of schooling in order to join any bachelor's degrees. And it's also needed a national examination for higher education if needed as well in your country. And we need a B2 level of English or Italian, depending on the course you're going to choose. It's not mandatory to have a certificate because we can send you an assessment test to prove your level, but it's mandatory to possess at least a B2 level of the language. Just a reminder, we opened applications today. So as you can see on screen, you can go to our dedicated platform, apply.ulm.it. It's very easy. You can just Google it. And well, it's very, very easy because there are written down all the documents that we need, and whatever you need, you can, of course, send us an email. I will show you later on all of our contacts. We can move. Okay. As I told you before, 12 years of schooling are mandatory. So in case you have 11 years of schooling, you have 2 options. You can whether follow a foundation course in Italy or attend 1 year of university in your home country. It's very important that you complete that year in order to be considered as the 12th year of schooling. Next slide, please. Those are the admission requirements for 2-year master's degrees. Of course, we need a bachelor's diploma, and preferably it should be related to the chosen program. Then, as for the bachelor's, we need a B2 level proficiency in English or Italian, depending on the course. There is an exception because for the course in specialized translation and conference interpreting, we need a C1 level of Italian because everything is, well, you're going to translate or interpret from and into Italian. So it's very important to have a very high level of the language. Also, good knowledge of the topics related to the program is required, and also motivation and aptitude. Same, you can go to apply.ulm.it and start your application process from today. Next slide, please. All right. This is how more or less the admission intakes work. For our long-term programs, so bachelor's and 2-year masters, we have only 1 yearly intake, and the courses generally start in September. For next academic year, I think lessons will start on the 25th of September, 2023. And we will accept application until May, but of course it depends on the availability of the course. So since we have, I would say not very few spots, but there are a close number of students that can join these programs. I recommend you, in case you're interested, to start your application process as soon as you can, as soon as you're able to collect the needed documents. And well, yeah, that's it. Next slide, please. As I told you at the beginning of the presentation, the university is private, so students do pay tuition fees that for bachelor's degrees are 8,556, while for master's are 9,956. In both cases, the tuition fee is divided into 3 installments, so it's not due to pay altogether, but the first installment is at the enrollment, the second in December 2023, and the third and last one in March 2024. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. Of course, we offer several financial aid opportunities. Indeed, students can apply for tuition fee reductions that for certain programs are up to 100%, while for other programs are just 50% tuition reduction. And you can see on screen the different programs where these tuition reductions are applied. Like, for example, for hospitality and tourism management, we apply up to 100% tuition fee reduction, while for corporate communication and strategic communication, 50% tuition reduction. Both reductions are entirely based on merit, so on how you did both in high school or bachelor's at bachelor's level, depending on the course you're applying for. And apart from that, all the students can also apply for the regional scholarship, which is based both on merit and income. And the two aids can be combined, which means that you can do you can apply for the 50% tuition reduction or up to 100% tuition fee reduction, and also to the regional scholarship. It's very important to note that you will have the results of the regional scholarship after the beginning of the lessons, because lessons will start in September, as I told you before, and the results of the scholarship will be published in November, so 2 months after the beginning of the lessons. And the call for application for next academic year, so 23-24, will be published around June, July. So in case you're interested, you can send us an email. And I think I told you everything. Next slide, please. All right, so here you can see our contacts. I think you can take a screenshot or a picture of that, so just in case you have more questions. And you can send us an email at admission@ulm.at or send us a WhatsApp message at the number that you can see here on screen. Once again, the application platform is apply.ulm.at, and well, applications are open, so you can go and submit your application. Thank you very much. I'm going to see if there are any questions. Okay, yeah, I do see questions. Anna is asking, do I need to pass IELTS or TOEFL? It would be better if you have a B2 English certificate, but in case you don't have any certificate, we will send you an assessment test to prove your level. It's mandatory to possess a B2 level, but it's not mandatory to have an IELTS or a TOEFL. We also accept Cambridge advanced certificates, just in case. And I also see other questions. What's the price for a year? I don't know if I have already answered to that question, but still, the price for 2-year master's degrees is 9,956, while for 3-year bachelor's degrees is 8,556, divided into 3 installments. And yeah, we do offer scholarships, regional scholarship, and tuition fee reduction for the best students, I would say. And for Italian courses, do I need any certificates of language level? Yes, B2 level of Italian for Italian courses. Apart from specialized translation and conference interpreting at master's level, that we need a C1 level of Italian. All right, I don't see any more questions, but in case you have some more, we are always available at admission@ulm.it or through our WhatsApp number. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's wait for you. Thank you.
Thank you.